Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about why SSD didn't fell in price as we had actually expected. So let's dive deep into it. So first, you have to understand certain context. What the hell is memory? Well, there are two types of memory, basically where you store things. So one we classify as primary memory. Now, primary memory is more or like working memory, meaning you don't actually store things. It's like a table. You're not supposed to put things on your table. You have shelves where you put things. Table is just while you are working. So RAM is like that. Basically, it's where computer, the CPU, actually have its processing done. Then you have secondary memory, basically where you actually store the file. Now, RAM by design is volatile, meaning it's YOLO, it's super fast, it's really reactive, it's low latency, hyper low latency, but the moment power goes off, the end, kaput, done. So you can't actually store operating system. Although there is a cheat code, you can store like certain embedded devices have whole operating system in a RAM kind of unit, but they have what we call a ROM, read-only memory, meaning once the at the construction stage, you write the firmware there, the end. It's just read-only. So RAM is volatile, and the moment power goes off equals delete. Everything is deleted. There's nothing left there. That's by design. And again, that's the only reason why it can react so fast. It's just capacitors. So it's really fast, really responsive, but volatile. Power goes, done. Now you're like, can't we store if with capacity with batteries? Yes, some people did try to make early days SSD with RAM and a small battery, and yes, it did work. No, it was not useful simply because operating system was not fast enough to utilize it. It was like, okay. So that's why that did not go. But a lot of RAID cards also had that for emergency. So if data was on flight, power cut happened. So the battery should keep it alive for 24 hours, meaning you have 24 hours of alarms to repair the power supply, and tada, you can dump the data. Failure to do so, kaput. So that's the RAM part of it. Now secondary memory is for your actual work done. Not working, work done. So everything stays there, your operating system, your applications, your files, all things. Now here's the deal, we have reached a point where you cannot actually tell the difference between DDR4 and DDR5 unless you are like, hyper nerd and like you are doing benchmarking and like you are like, okay, I rendered this file consumes this decompression algorithm consumes this much time with DDR4, DDR5. Most people cannot tell that. Like again, they may be able to tell capacity, because again, if capacity is hitting the bottleneck, it will drop down your speed, responsiveness of operating system very drastically. But as long as you have around 32 gigabytes, you kind of good, like you got this. So hard drives on the other hand, meaning if I can take you a double blind test and most people can't tell DDR4 from DDR5, but almost everybody will be able to tell a difference between this and this, even though both are SATA, they can tell. That's how massive differences, because again, the law of physics is very simple. You are as fast as your slowest link. If hard drive mechanical spinning platter is the what we call your slowest link, your computer's response would be limited by that. So that's the problem with memory. Secondary memory, it's a sorted thing. We want more faster, but again, it's sorted. Mechanical drive, it's not sorted. So we need something that is snappy. So let's understand certain historical context of it. Now we started with floppy disk type. Now back in the days, people used to be big. So their floppy used to be 8 inches. They were big puppies. Then 1970, 60, 70 happened, and IBM PC started to come up, Apple system started to happen, and they started to realize that how the hell you gonna store data? There was no hard drive. There were hard drives, like that. Physically hard drives were invented, but they were mainframe equipment. They were more costly than aircraft. So they were stupid. So what the hell consumer will do? So the idea was you're gonna have floppy drive, but here's the floppy is not that huge. Like, you are talking about kilobytes. So what the hell you gonna do? Well, you're gonna have 2 floppy drives. So drive A and drive B. So idea was you're gonna have operating system on floppy A, and whatever work you wanted to do, you're gonna do on floppy B. That's why all the older systems, like really old, early age of computers from 1970s, they always have 2 floppy drive. The idea was you put operating system in one, and generally you don't even pull it out. You put it there, you latch it lock, the end, and you put like, okay, I'm gonna play a game, so you put a second floppy. I'm gonna do some word processing, I'm gonna put another floppy. You're gonna do something like that. So, and that's why C drive became the hard drive. By the time hard drive started to appear in market, consumer level, that was 1980s. And that time it was very early, very expensive, very small, 10 megabytes kind of small. So people were like, okay, A is for operating system, B is for your whatever you are doing, C is like whatever else you want to add. Again, there was tape drive also, as in like your audio cassette as a data system. So C was reserved for that, and that stuck. That nomenclature stuck. That's why your Windows always says C drive. Yes, let that be very clear. You can change it such a way that A drive, and again, some people do that, especially if you have two SSDs. You can have a scenario as like, hey, this is my OS, make it A. All the applications that you are installing would by default go to C, and you can have B, that is for like, crucial work level. C is like, your risk drive. You are testing out application, doing random things. Whenever they go to put your flash formatted. So you can do that. Now hard drive started a bit late compared to floppy, and they started with PATA, parallel advanced technology of attachment. It had pins with some extra pins, with some more pins, with pins on top of another pin. So it used to have huge ribbon cables, like a huge, bonkersly huge. And it was able to sustain 100 megabytes read-write speed. Although, let that be clear, while PATA interface was 100 Mbps, the early hard drives, A, did not have enough capacity, B, were not fast enough. But again, people were seeing progress, development, 90s started to happen, so explosion in technology was like whoosh. So things were getting fast, so people are like, okay, let's upgrade it. PATA was upgraded. They had a upgraded format that was like almost 130 Mbps, but people realized that parallel attachment and this many pin is unwise, so they go to serial advanced technology of attachment. So that was released, and SATA 1, the first puppy, that was 150 Mbps. It directly leapfrogged it, and cable was tiny. So they leapfrogged it. SATA 150 Mbps. Then they were like, yeah, mechanical hard drive was actually getting faster. So they're like, okay, SATA 2, 300 Mbps, and just as a goodwill gesture, they made SATA 3 600 Mbps. But here's the deal, it never needed to go above SATA 2 simply because these things reached a physical kind of read-write limit. Meaning, if you can spin the platter faster, your read-write speed will not change that much. Although your random seek speed will change dramatically. Meaning, find a random file and extract it. Finding that random file will become better if you have higher RPMs. That's why server hard drives have stupid RPMs. Like you buy your normal desktop hard drive, 3000, 5000, 6000 maybe. But you go to server hard drives, especially small high speed ones, those are bonkers, like 10,000. Some are like 15,000. So those do allow you to read very fast. But basically random seek becomes fast, but read and write is still limited by, and again, as you increase the density, the data point becomes smaller. So your read-write speed never actually crossed 250 Mbps. And be mindful, those are like optimum. If you directly have a one massive file completely defragmented, then you might be able to sustain that speed. Realistically, it's like 250, 250, 250, 210, 250, 250, 97, 250, 250. It's like, it's that. It's not stable. So SATA 2 was like kind of upper limit, and SATA 3 was like, yeah, there is no point. Like people understood the physics of it. It's like, yeah, we'll not make anything more. SATA 3 was the last. They're like, yeah, there is no point. Mechanical drive, based on the laws of physics, it's kind of reached a point where it's like, unless you have like 4 read heads reading completely from different direction, you're not gonna go very far. So like imagine that hand, you have another from other side, another from other side, then maybe you can do that. Heck, you can do parallel read and write. So one hand is only for writing, one for only reading. That could be done, but we kind of realized, like we realized by SATA 2, it's like, yeah, SATA 2 is overkill. SATA 3 is like just a wiggle room for wiggle room's sake. And 2 form factor became the dominant. Like same way floppy, there were many floppy formats, but 2 became dominant, 3.5 inch and 5.5 inch. So same way, this puppy 3.5 inch and this puppy 2.5 inch or mechanical drive. I don't have open one. So 2.5 inch became the mechanical. Now like, okay, isn't it bigger than 2.5 inch? Yes. Sorry, 3.5 inch. Yes. The platter is that size. So same way floppy is always measured by the disk inside, same that nomenclature carried forward here with this. So we use that same taxonomy, I think it's called. So basically what is the disk size, spinning platter size, that's what we classify it. And they're still the backbone of world data. Basically, if you go into a YouTube database, yeah, it's hard drives. And laptops started to utilize 2.5 inch and servers utilize it. Why servers? Again, specifically, servers will have two data sets. One is the bulk data storage and another would be a database where you have a lot of small files. So they will have smaller platter spinning at ludicrous speed, ludicrously loud, ludicrously energy hungry, but it will have enough read-write speed to maintain enough random seek ability to I get this. So they do work. So that's the history of it. Now SSD was the dream. Now we knew it as early as 1990s, SSD can be a thing, SSD would be a thing. So solid state drive was the dream that everybody was working towards, simply because it would be fast. Law of physics is like how your VHS can work versus a VHS tape versus CD. CD will always be faster because lens can, it's a spinning disk, lens can YOLO. So law of physics, flash would be even faster. So we knew under the known laws of science, flash would be ludicrously fast. It would be reliable. Why? These things are ticking boom devices, meaning it will go bad. And please don't comment oh, I have a hard drive that I've been using for 10,000 years. That's a rare case. Most enterprise consume hard drive and they don't even wait for okay, well, let's wait to replace it. No, if they bought it, they will run through some test it or have some data, some guarantees. They're okay, 5-year lifespan. The moment 5 years start to achieve, they will start to swap out hard drives. If you ever see why so many Westerners have eBay hard drives that are in bulk storage, that's the reason. Why is that? I'll explain that further, but there is a risk factor in RAID that you do not want a lot of old hard drives. So flat out, because it's a wear component, that motor will get tired, the bearing will get damaged, the platter, and the most likely scenario, the platter will have a crash with the arm. Because again, arm is very aerodynamic structure that is trying to maintain a precise distance. Eventually, it will fail. So it's a guaranteed scenario, it will fail, and it does fail. Heck, I have 4 as a props right now. So we want something fast, we want something that is reliable, something that is silent. Again, if there is no moving part, there is no noise, and long lasting. So flash media was developing rapidly in 2010. You must have the advent of pen drives happened, advent of digital photography happened, memory cards started to appear, all of that started to happen. And hard drive form factor was utilized. So 2.5 inch was there. People wanted the new technology to feel snappy, sexy. So 2.5 inch was adopted. And if you had made computers around 2015, you would have seen this sort of era where everybody's like, you're going to have hard drives, that is your actual storage, and then you're going to have an SSD for your operating system. Because operating system is brutal. It has way too many tiny files that it reads and writes all the time. So having that on SSD allows your operating system to I got this. But your video editing files to be here is bro, it's a large sequential file. We got this. We good. We got this. And again, SSDs, people wanted it, but they can't afford it. One of my friend spent bonkers amount of money. He got really huge SSD back in the old days. How was that? Yeah, 120 gigabyte. Wow. Wow. We used to literally install game in the SSD section, uninstall it to install another game so we can play it. So that's the old era. So goddamn, I'm old. So hard drive form factor 2.5 inch was used and SATA interface was used. And there was a lot of growing pain. Not only the space was limited, but problem was, you have to understand, the flash chip is not long lasting because your RAM can last practically forever, but your NAND chips itself will not last forever. Why is that? Well, because those chips have what we call floating gate. What is that floating gate? Basically, you have a bus, right? A bus where you dumps voltage, and then you have a cell. There you have control gate and floating gate. Now here's the deal. How do you store data into that? Well, you force reverse current to it, as in electron, and you just wham it, so you push electrons through a gate and tada, it gets trapped into a system. Now that's awesome, but that should have triggered a red alert. You are forcing something that's supposed to block electron and you are forcing through it. And again, that's a write operation. Read operation is not that loading because you are just measuring the voltage in the cell, not an issue. That's why read does not destroy your hard drives, but write will destroy your SSDs. Because every time you're writing, first it's flushing everything, because again, that's another penalty with the SSD design. They have to flush the whole cell. Row, I think that's the technical term, row, they have to flush it. So what they do, read all the data, dump it into RAM, then flush it, then write again with a new arrangement. So you are reading and writing. Basically, reading, nobody cares. Writing, first you erase it and then you flush it again. So that dielectric layer wears out, physically wears out. Meaning, if you can slice it and see it in the electron microscope, you will see it degraded. Meaning, its ability to stop electrons goes down, because again, you are forcing it through. You're forcing it through. And it cannot be super strong. It cannot be made out of, like, aluminum oxide, where it's like, thou shall not pass. It will require kilovolts of electricity to force it through. So realistically, it has an upper limit, and as it becomes weaker, the electron trapped there starts to leak out. So if you are doing a read and write, like computer is on, everything is working, not an issue. But you turn off the computer, you come back like after a few months, it's like bit rate. Photographers suffered a lot of issues because of that. Bit rot happened. Why? Electron leaked out, few bit got leached, tada, photo corrupted. So that was a big issue in the early days. Let that be clear. It still is an issue on an engineering level, but basically the controller chip, that has become so good that it is doing wear leveling, meaning it's making sure if one cell shows or one row shows, like, it's not acting good, it will rarely write to it. It will like, okay, let's use other cells that are healthier to balance it out. And again, there's a lot of complex engineering happening. The flash chip itself did not change that much, but the controller, it became like almost a computer right now. Like normal SSD controller chip is fast enough where it is like actually able to do calculation, encryption, RAM management, data logging, index management, all of that. It can do that right now. So it took a lot of time to make controller good enough. Wear leveling algorithms and small size issues was solved basically. 240 gigabyte, now you can actually get terabyte. Heck, my old computer had like 1 terabyte Samsung 950 Pro, 2.5 inch, not NVMe. So, no, sorry, 850 Pro, yeah, 800, it was 800. So there was a lot of growing pain. However, it actually showed one thing, that it can max out SATA 3. This could not do that. No matter what size you buy, it cannot do that. But this can. This exact SSD, this is the measuring speed. It is able to read at 562 and write at 507. And again, that was another reason, because you have to do row by row. Writing speed was always slower. So 507. And be mindful, if companies want to design something that always maintains 600, they can do that. It will not be cheap, but they can do that. Like, this is a server grade SSD. It gives you 600 Mbps full end, write and read. It can be done. It's not that difficult. Nowadays, it's like trivial. Although if you have a lot of capacity, you do need RAM, but it can be done. So that's how we got with SSD, and SATA finally became obsolete. Now, all this should have led a scenario where hard drive should have been abandoned and we should have all been SSD, but that did not happen because a race started. Now, flash chips were getting fast. SATA cannot keep up. So, and again, why they did not make SATA 4 or SATA 5? Simply because it had too many legacy bloat. All interfaces are designed by the people who are designing it. If the design was done in 1990s or even earlier than that, like 1980s, they're like, bro, they were thinking like 1980s. So there was a lot of fundamental limitation. And again, it's not an issue. It's just that there was no scenario, meaning why fat file cannot handle like more than 4 gigabyte. It was designed long ago. They were not even dreaming of 4 gigabyte, let alone terabytes or petabytes. So that's an issue. It's like, if people were designing it and they are dealing in kilobytes, terabyte would be like, bro, what the hell is that? That's why, like, you must have remembered, like, there was an issue where finally we started to go above 3.2 terabyte. Windows needed some firmware upgrades to, it's like, okay, now we can actually address more than 4 terabytes. So same happened with SATA. SATA was designed for basically hard drives. So it has a single command queue. Why it has a single command queue? Because it's a freaking one arm that is going like this. One. It does not have 4 from all 4 coordinates. So it was designed with that. And it can send 32 commands queue. That is good enough. Again, we designed everything around it. So that is there. Latency of 6 millisecond, that is there. And the biggest issue with that, it does not talk with your computer. If you have old computer, you could easily see that chip. There is a SATA controller, as in South Bridge back in the days we used to call it. So it's like computer is talking to the controller is talking to your hard drive. So that created an issue. So you're like, okay, let's throw away this legacy. Let's create something new with modern understanding. So this modern understanding, first, what pipeline to choose. So PSI was chosen. PCI, Personal Computer Interface Express or something like that. PCI Express was chosen because it keeps the pin count and keep upgrading it. Meaning you have the same pin count from PCI 2 to PCI 3 to PCI 4, PCI 5, and speed keeps going up. Even PCI 6, same pin count. speeds going up. So it's a very fast thing. On top of that, it has low latency. Why it has low latency? It talks to the CPU, as in inside the CPU. There is no controller. It talks to the directly CPU. So that gives you very low latency, and it has huge bandwidth. It has so much bandwidth that we do GPU on it. It's like, bro, we got this. We good. So that's why that pathway was chosen. Like, this is the fastest way to communicate to CPU, and we do not have to reinvent anything. Cool, awesome. So that's the road selected, what bus to put on it. So, or like, what protocol to put on it. So NVMe protocol was developed. That was non-volatile memory express. So this was made with wisdom of all the SATA history and what flash can actually do. So this time it has 64,000 command queues, and like it can actually deal with per queue, by the way. So it can deal with lot. Basically at this point in time, a high-end NVMe, as in like U.3, like server-based system, it is so powerful that it can compete with server in database file management because it can handle so many parallel operation. Like, and again, why it can do that? Because NVMe was designed to handle that on a fundamental level. Latency, instead of 6 milliseconds, microseconds, 6 microseconds, it's a 2.8 microsecond. Like, does that matter? Yes, a lot. So that is there. And the biggest part is that it directly communicates to the actual CPU. So all of this allowed NAND flash to actually flex its wing. It's like, high speed. So it can do that. And operating system had to be reworked. That's the weakest part right now. Operating system cannot actually utilize it. It's like, bro, we were designed with hard drive in mind. Like once you reached this SATA SSD, operating system was like, bro, we got this. Like, what more do you want me to do? And that's why, like, if you can have super fast SSDs, there is no use of it. Even as long as you exceed 1 GB per second, video editors are fine. It's like, okay, how do you know? Well, have you seen video editors editing on NAS? What they generally use? If they are not Linus Tech Tips, generally they are using 10 Gbps. That is 1 GB per second. And if they are Linus Tech Tips, they are still only using 25 fiber connection. That is 2.5 GHz. That's like PCI 3.0 kind of speed. Not even 3.0, PCI 2.0 speed. So we don't need speed. Like, we can't use that speed. So although server people can, and that created the paradox. There is only one application where you can have, like, because it's directly going through CPU, you can create a scenario where CPU acts as a bridge, basically dumps the data directly from NVMe storage to GPU, memory direct as we call it. PlayStation 5 does that. So idea is, instead of taking the file from NVMe, dumping into CPU, decoding it, depackaging it, and then dumping into GPU RAM, VRAM, you create direct pathway. That in principle could do amazing things. PlayStation 5 does say that it can do some amazing things, but would that make a very night and day difference? As a game artist, no. Because again, if you're developing a game, you design around the things you have. So we can't use it much. Like right now, instead of the interface being the limited, it's the operating system. Like you can buy a very high speed, like I have this one. This is a slow one. It is 7,000 megabytes per second. My fast one, that is like in my computer, that's PCI 4.0. I have 5.0 motherboard, did not wanted to spend money on it because it was very new back then. So that is a 990 Pro. That puppy can easily deal with around, give or take, 7,900. It's almost 1 Gbps extra speed on top of this. And that's like 3-4 years older than this. So it was a Pro system, very expensive, but again, only 1 terabyte. This is 4 terabyte. So my operating, would I feel a difference if I jumped into some modern flagship that is PCI 5.0 super fast? No, just no. So we reached a point where bottleneck is utilization. It's like, what the hell are you going to do? Like, that's the tragedy of it. Like, we could only get like 4 terabytes or 8 terabyte PCI 3.0. Same in PCI 4.0, same in PCI 5.0. Because server people could utilize it, because they could write, especially database file systems, they could utilize it and they ran with it and they were willing to pay for it. That created a scenario where these got like what they were doing. So if they were working, instead of having a larger storage, faster storage, we got faster storage whether we needed it or not. So that created the paradox. SSD did not drop in price, it got higher in price, but it became faster. Like right now you can just buy, like it's not that expensive. Again, AI apocalypse aside, it's not that expensive. It should not be that expensive. It was not that expensive in 2024 end. So You can get cheap enough, but again, why it was that expensive also? Why it was not dirt cheap? Because the system was prioritizing speed, so they had to have a RAM for that. They had to have basically read-write algorithm optimized for that. So controller is the flash chips is not that expensive. You can see the price. NAND chip flies, they are not expensive. It's the goddamn controller. And again, faster you want, the faster the controller has to work. Controller becomes bonkersly expensive. So server admins, because they are chasing high speed, that's what creating this scenario where we are getting bonkers high speed, but we are not getting capacity for consumer. And penalty is it's becoming expensive and it's becoming hot. That's why you see server systems. Why the heck they have heat sink? Like this is supposed to be like cheap, lightweight, no heat production component. Why the heck it has heat sink? The half of the heat is coming from the system on chip that is like actually doing the routing, the controller. And again, they are frying the system. It's like, what if it can give almost the same speed as a RAM? I'm not even joking. They're actually trying to do that. Not even joking. And that's on PCI 5.0. CXL interface, PCI 6.0. Some people are like, you can actually do it. You can just run on the system. And again, Intel Optane was designed to do that long term. Like you can use these things as a RAM nowadays, but it's just that it will not last long. But again, if you have like some specific database that does require those sort of like super rapid response time, you have it. So that is race. Like that's why, because instead of focusing on capacity, we focused on speed. Everybody had to pay the price. So is there a solution to this problem? Thankfully, yes, there is a solution. Is that HDD is bad for your data. Because again, when you're talking about hard drive like this, like 2 terabyte or something like that, 250 Mbps read-write speed, it's not end of the world. But the moment you start to become big, like this stupid big, like Western Digital 32 terabyte or like, what is a Mozok 3 Plus or something from Seagate, those puppy can go to 38 terabyte. Yeah, at that speed, RAID becomes a hazard. Now, like, wait, RAID was designed for, redundant array of inexpensive disks. Well, here's the deal. Imagine the scenario. You have 32 terabytes of drive. Cool, awesome, GG. You have a lot of it. Awesome, normal Wednesday for a server people. Here's the issue. If you have that, once you have that sort of server, one hard drive will go back. Cool, awesome. You pull it out, you put a new one in. Here's the deal. How long it will take to build it up? And let's say it's a YouTube server, so it's already full. How long it will take to remake that RAID array so it goes back to the old strength? If you have something like 36 terabyte, and you are reading and writing at 250 megabytes per second, which again, optimum scenario, you will not be able to sustain it. And again, RAID are generally smaller blocks, so it will take time. 250 Mbps will rarely be done. If you go 250 Mbps full on, it will never dip. It will take, for 36 terabyte disks, it will take 40 hours. 40 hours full on. Yeah, if it's an old hard drive, it will kaput itself at that point in time. And yes, it does happen. And yes, that's the primary reason why server people do not risk old hard drives. Because again, you can have a RAID array. You replaced one hard drive and you're like, okay, wait a minute. All my old hard drives are reaching that 5-year point. If any new hard drive fails, I replace it with a new one. During reconstruction, it will damage the whole array. And at that point, the data is lost. So people have learned it the hard way that hard drives are bad for data. So meaning if you really have to store data and hard drive is the only way, you will have tape as a backup. Because again, it is getting bad. Like 32 terabytes, cool, awesome. What's the speed? Yeah, still the same hard drive speed. Yeah, that's not good. So that's the problem. So this two things, there was a hope, there was a glimmer of hope that speed chasing and miniaturization was not overkill. There was a company, OCZ, they almost had the idea. It's like, why everybody is forcing, and this is the early days, why everybody is forcing to use this form factor? Like if every computer, every server is designed for this puppy, why not upgrade this puppy, this form factor? Why, instead of making ruler and all that, cool, keep those, but use the same topology we used to have, like SSD for fast thing, slow SSD for normal things. So, and again, be mindful, a slow SSD, as in like SATA 3 only, no reinvention of a protocol, it will still be 3x faster, and random read and write speed would be exponentially faster. So that will directly mean your database response time would be dramatically faster. So just use the 3.5 inch, you have a bigger PCB, you can put more NAND flash. Like OCZ, I think, became the first one for consumer to have 1 terabyte for consumer use. It was expensive, but it could have been done. And that is what we are missing. Every Tom, Dick and Harry is like, what if we go hyper speed? It's like, what if you don't? What if you just make a controller that is just good enough? Not this latest and latest like controller which has like freaking 50 layers of encryption and 70 layers of RAM processing, 700 layers of flash chip management. It's like, what if you just like say it, that's what you're competing against. Like, you have to beat this, the end. And again, if you want like bells and whistles, make sure that 600 Mbps is the sustained speed. Sustained, like no matter what is happening, it will sustain 600 Mbps, the end. And that's like PCI 2.0. Not even 3.0, that's PCI 2.0. You go to PCI 3.0, it's like, bro, we good. So use modern manufacturing node, like 4 nanometer node, and again, use a modern i6 like instruction set architecture RISC-V. Yes, and a lot of manufacturers are using RISC-V now for SSD control because that's how expensive those things are. It's like, okay, use that modern manufacturing, use that modern infrastructure protocol, use modern NAND, but SATA, limited with SATA. And don't, some company did try that. They're like, what if we give 100 terabytes? It's like, what if you just replace this? Don't fight it, just replace it. Heck, there's one cheat code you can do. Instead of 32 terabytes, you can have 132 TB bytes. Small I. Basically, instead of counting complete units as in like 1000, you count 1024, 1024. You will require a bit more flash chip, but you can like, Western Digital gives you a hard drive that says 32 and you barely get like, what, 29 or something? But we say 32, you get 32. Again, those things would be the point. Like, speed is not necessary. Miniaturization is not necessary for everything. Like, I get it. There are use cases for that. But like this abandonment of this logical concept and just chasing this sort of thing is like, and while it does look like it has two platter arm, it's still one. It's just that they had to, because they have so many disks, it was not logical to have one. And again, it does make your read and write operation logical. So there is a solution. Should I open a company that makes this? Like, because again, after this AI apocalypse, that NAND chips will not be that expensive. Controllers, if somebody can, and by the way, modern controller FPGAs are so fast that they can deal with SATA speed on their own. I won't even need to spin up a new ASICs. I just like, this is a FPGA unit, go YOLO it. So there is a solution. Like, I'm just waiting for one company to realize, don't chase the speed, don't chase the miniaturization, don't chase the server people. How about everybody else? Like, just fire missile directly at these things. So this was my presentation on basically why the heck SSD did not become cheaper. I hope you have liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.